Hi everyone, a very good afternoon and namaste. This is Paramita Chatterjee from DealStreetAsia and I welcome all of you here on behalf of our entire team to the webinar titled EdTech and BYJU'S, the lessons learned and the road ahead. Well, EdTech is one sector that has been making headlines for more reasons than one. From being a darling of both the consumers and investors in 2020 and 2021, and mind you, those were the peak of the COVID years, to now, there's been a huge amount of changes witnessed by the sector. So now what has led to these changes? Is it that schools have reopened and children have gone back to the offline medium from online? Or is it that edtech firms like BYJU'S, who operate primarily in the K-12 segment, have expanded way too soon? Or is it also something to do with the fact that investors have pumped in too much of capital in the sector way too early without taking into consideration what was to come? To address some of these issues, without much ado, let me welcome our guests today, Mr. Baiju Ravindran and Ms. Divya Gokulnath, both founders of edtech giant BYJU'S. Many thanks, Baiju and Divya, for sparing time to join us today.
Thank you. Thank you, Paramita. Thank you, Vibhuti.
Thank you. Good morning, good evening, depending on wherever you are joining from.
Thank you. We look forward to having a fruitful discussion. On this note, I'll also take a bit of time to introduce you to my colleague Vibhuti Sharma, who covers the sector for DealStreetAsia and has some extremely deep and interesting insights into the sector. So just one last point from my end before we, roll on with the discussions. Those of you who have joined us live and are listening to us now, please feel free to ask any question you feel like to Baiju and Divya in the chat box below, and we will try to get them answered to you. And just in case you missed something, please note that the entire transcript will be soon available and the video will be sent to you on your email ID over the next few days. I'll also like to add one point that the video and the transcript will be shared with our entire 40,000 subscriber base across markets that we cover, be it in Southeast Asia, China, Japan, India. We also have subscribers in the US. So on that note, let us straight away dive into the questions. Vibhuti, you want to take in from here?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. Thanks, Paramita. Thank you, Divya and Baiju, for joining us. We're absolutely very happy to have you here. I'm sure I speak for everybody. So BYJU'S, as we know, and as the world's biggest edtech firm, and till about 2 years ago, the narrative of BYJU'S was about about a poster child of edtech firms, not just in India but around the world. But if you see the last 18 months or so, things have changed a little bit, and the ride is not as smooth as it was, let's say 2 years ago. There has been a lot of media attention and a lot of issues are addressed, which of course, we'll be discussing at length today. But our first question to you is, how are you dealing with this and focusing on the more important bits, such as moving towards profitability and focusing on the important things again?
Vibhuti, your question had the answer. It was the narrative, right? So if I have to look at it, I would always say that during the pandemic, we were fortunate to be in a segment of positive relevance. So we got a lot of attention. And for the right reasons. We were able to help students who could unfortunately, stay out of school. We gave them continued learning from home. So we got a lot of attention. The segment got a lot of attention. And millions of learners came online. For the first time, classrooms shifted in hundreds of years. They say there are, decades when nothing happens and weeks when decades happen. And that's what happened for edtech. So that's what happened. And even post the pandemic, and I think because of the sustained focus on edtech, what happened to edtech also happened to other sectors because there was a slowdown globally, not just for edtech, but because of the macro change, multiple other reasons. Every segment has seen a slowdown, and that is unfortunate. So I would like to say that it's common for every segment, but what we're also missing here is a larger point of, if you look at the numbers of growth, globally edtech is growing even today at 16.5%. India edtech is growing at 40%. So that really shows that if anywhere is edtech going to be the capital of the world, it's India, right? So maybe it is because we are comparing it to a time when there was, so much hyper growth, and every segment, every company goes through phases in its startup journey. So we also had a hyper growth phase during the pandemic, which we reacted well to. We were able to service so many students, not just us, I would say multiple other edtech companies as well. And 2022, in fact, which, because you said last 18 months, I want to say in the last 18 months, which includes 2022, supposed to be our toughest year ever. We had one of our most successful launches of hybrid learning, which is the BYJU'S Tuition Center. 300 plus offline-online hybrid centers were launched in India. And if you ask me, it's doing phenomenally well. Now, all this is happening only because we have been able to adapt to the evolving needs of the learner. So yes, students' needs have evolved, but it's only evolved more positively. They have started accepting online as an integral part of mainstream learning. So today, edtech is more prominent than ever before. Edtech is more in need than ever before. This is the opportunity for edtech to shine. And I'll tell you why it's also more relevant. In the last 24 months, since we've launched our social initiative, and this is what we are not famous for, right? What we are most proud about today as a company is what we are not famous for, and that is our social initiative. In the last 24 months, we've impacted 55 lakh students from all over the country, the deepest parts of the country. And for them, this is their primary mode of learning. If anything, digital learning is shattering the physical divide. So I want to summarize by saying that maybe it feels because we are, our minds are perceived to look at perception as reality, but that's not true. The fact is the last 24 months, while it may be tougher, which it is for every other business, for edtech and for companies with solid foundations, because we are not a company which has been built in the last 3 to 4 years. We have been started building 15 to 18 years ago, and we plan to do this for the next 30 years at least. So fundamentals are very strong. We have been agile. Even though we've grown bigger, we've always learned how to innovate constantly. And that's kept us always at top of the game.
Right. Paramita, you have something to add?
Sure. So I'll actually ask a related question here. So some say that you, when I say you, I mean BYJU'S as the company. Some say that you grew too fast and too soon. And you mentioned, the last 24 months, I'm sorry. And perhaps your own valuation is testimony to that. When we rewind a little and go back to September 2020, we see that you had raised funding at a valuation of what? 10.8 billion. Subsequently, within a year, it touched 16.5. Now, last year, it was about 22 billion, and there were reports of a markdown this year. So what are your thoughts on that? Does it concern you, especially at a time you're trying to raise funding?
Maybe I'll answer that. So one, valuation is maybe just one metric where you can track progress. But the most important thing, and something which is very objective, is how you can just go and on all the public platforms and just go and see the organic growth of BYJU'S. There are close to 145, 150 million users across our platforms. And that number has doubled in the last 18 months. Now, the current macro might be challenging. The multiples would have changed. Priorities have changed from revenue multiples to or growth, where growth was getting incentivized, to looking at profitability. We have also made that shift 6 months back. And we are well on track to hit profitability in 5 out of the 6 businesses. Not many people know that we have 3 businesses in India doing more than 1,000 crores, still growing between 30 to 50%. So the year which you think is challenging is going to be edtech or BYJU'S. It's just a matter of time people realize what's the best kept secret here. So in terms of, and then you can see these numbers on public platforms. Just go to SimilarWeb and type byju's.com and see the growth in the last 6 months, where we've stopped, starting October, we stopped all our marketing. So we are not doing any marketing now. And that's purely organic growth. So we have built brand awareness, and on top of a strong product market fit, we have created all options for students, right? It's not just about online. It's not about offline. It's about giving options to students. A self-learner can download and learn from BYJU'S learning app. Someone who needs the mentoring, monitoring and motivating from a teacher can join a live class. Someone who needs an offline center, or some offline touch, can go to our hybrid learning centers, which we have started 300 plus hybrid learning centers in 1 year. So today, if you include Akash and BYJU'S tuition centers, we have 600 plus centers where we offer these options to users. It's not about, we can't define what the students want, right? It's all about doing everything based on the ever-changing needs of a student. So someone who wants to learn everything sitting at home, without any teacher involvement, they have that option, right? So we have created all options for students. So when BYJU'S, Akash, and Great Learning, we have 3 strong brands, one on K-12, one on test prep, and one for reskilling, upskilling, and for professionals, all of which is actually above the 1,000 crore scale. So it is, yeah, we have gone through our fair share of challenges, but in a 40, 50-year-old, at least that's our aspiration. I'm not telling that. Aspiration is to create something which will last generations. Like every company will go through cycles based on every 10 year, the companies will go through this. There will be times where there will be a lot of funding available. There will be times where fundraising will be a challenge, but that's not, valuation is at the end of the day, it's just a number. It's all about the value creation. What we have built in each of these segments, we have created segment leading offerings, not just in India, in some cases globally. So, and again, though, like it's very easy to think of it as the largest edtech platform in the world, all that, we don't believe too much in that. It's at the end of the day, it's just relative success. In each of these segments, we are at low single-digit percentage penetration in terms of giving options to students. So there's a long way to go before we'll even think of this as success. No scope for short-term optics here. Like the valuation, the growth, and all of that, like, are objective ways of looking at whether the company is moving in the right direction. But something which is much more objective is in the last 12 months, I have infused 650 million back into the company. So we are not we are not here to. So we will go through challenges, but we are here to stay.
Right. So I think, right. So whatever you mentioned from there, we'd like to take up an audience question here. It's coming. You've mentioned a few things about your businesses. So we have a question from Adriel Chua. The question is, how do you track a pure unit economics for each business segment? This is online versus offline, with BYJU'S increasingly becoming a hybrid online-offline product.
We have see what has happened during COVID that helped us help. When I say us, I'm not talking about BYJU'S alone, right? For many of the stakeholders, whether it's teachers, students, parents, institutions, it made them aware of what online learning can do. Now it's never about 100% online learning or 100% offline learning, right? It's like everything else in life, things are moving to something in the middle, right? Where students will have an option of learning part of it online, part of it in the classroom. There are a lot of things which can only be done in a classroom, but there are things which can be done much better when it's online, like personalization, having data on how students have been learning for the last few years. These are all ways in which we can make a big difference in the way how students consume content, whether it's in a classroom, whether it's at home, whether it's from a device, right? So these are still very early days in terms of, it's not about even edtech is not the thing, right? It's about education and then being teachers, right? We are not, we all started as teachers. In fact, 5 out of the 6 founding partners have been teachers. So we have created something based on what students want. When we realize that there's so many things which can be done better when you use technology as an enabler, and that importance of technology has only been increasing and not the other way around. COVID helped us, or COVID will help us skip a few years in our 10, 20, 30-year journey, right? Now, in terms of, so it's not that we are moving more offline, because we started as, not many people know that the first 11 years, we were 100% offline. So we know what works offline. And when we made the shift into when smartphone penetration was increasing, apps were taking off, there was no app for learning. So we kind of, without sounding arrogant, in a humble way, I'll say that we have kind of created, we have defined, created, and today more or less own the learning app segment of like students, like millions of students, those who actually use, both on the for-profit side and also on the not-for-profit side. The 55 lakh students, those who, like Divya mentioned, they use this platform across government schools in India in regional languages to learn concepts sitting at home. So it is, so the online learning or edtech is, yeah, these are all names, but at the end of the day, it's all about students having options. And because all students learn in different ways, right? It's never a one-size-fits-all approach. So giving them options and letting them decide what they want and what they have access to, because all the challenges in our education system, whether it's like how do you solve those challenges? Can you find more? Because it's not about, like, forget about finding good teachers. Finding teachers itself is a challenge. In the last 20 years, things have worsened only in small towns and villages, because there are a lot more better paying job options, because of which 20 years back, maybe there were better teachers in smaller towns. Today, they are doing something else, right? It's very difficult to attract graduates to come back into teachers in the offline world, making them stay back in their villages and small towns, right? So what we are trying to solve are like Herculean challenges in terms of we are trying our best in slowly moving the needle. I'll say it's moving in the right direction. It's going to take many more years before we will even say, or we can even think ourselves that we are making an impact at scale.
Right.
Okay.
So, yeah, Vibhuti, you want to go in next?
Yeah, sure. Coming back to the valuation, very recently there were reports of a valuation markdown by BlackRock. And this is not the first time that BYJU'S has faced something like this. Earlier this year, there was also a report by Prosus, and they had also trimmed the value of their stake in the company. What are your views on that? And what do you think is the real valuation of the company? Because every other day we see a media report, and we see a lot of investor reports which have different valuations out there. What is your take on that?
I think media is more worried about the valuation than any one of us. Why should we be worried about valuation? We are not selling anything. We've been buying more and more. We've been increasing the ownership in the company. You just take a look at what we have done in the last 12 months. We have increased the ownership like in the company in the last 12 months, right? So we are not we are not worried about valuation, because it can go up and down. It's about there is no science to how do you find the exact valuation of today, right? There is no science. It's based on, there's no clear science, right? It's based on potential. Some people will see those who actually know the segment, and they see that everything is moving in the right direction. It's all based on potential. Now, valuation markdowns by some of the investors, as and when based on the macro environment change, and when the public market comparables, when they change, they also do this marking up and marking down. Now, why they do, how they do, like I can't answer those questions at the end of the day. Some of them actually do it just based on cost, right? Just based on cost of capital. So some of these names which you mentioned, they just change the practice based on they follow different. There are so many investors who are still holding at the higher value, because you are talking about, we have 75 plus investors. You're talking about 1 or 2. And like the first name, they own less than 1% in the company, right? So it's not, and they've done that across all the private companies. That's not, there is nothing specific to BYJU'S over there, because in that window where they have done that as a business, we have grown like more than 40%. So the valuation change has nothing to do with business growth, right? It's based on when the public market comparables change. Some of them actually take a conservative approach and they mark down and then hold that at that. Now, why they do, how they do, you should ask them.
So other than the investors, other than BlackRock and Prosus, there have also been a lot of comments.
The most objective thing is, have you done down rounds? Answer is no. That's the thing,
okay.
Right? Have you done any down round? Answer is no.
Okay. And also wanted to know a bit more about the status of the company fundraising. And because we are talking about the valuation, what is the valuation that you're seeking in the next, the reported $250 million fundraise, and what is the status of that? When are we going to hear about it?
Just like how we give options to students, we also give options to investors. They can but there are no down rounds happening, and there are no down rounds happening like what you would have been reading in the newspaper. There is no down round happening. We give investors options either to come in at the last value, or like there are investors in the current environment, which I think is a win-win, where they will come in as a convert round, which will convert at a certain discount to the IPO. So is
it a flat valuation though?
There's no down round. Yeah, like last round means flat valuation, right? So
okay. Paramita, you have something.
But again, that's again, there also, I will tell you that is also by one investor, right? So just like how you're telling, there is one investor might be marking down the valuation to 12 billion. There can be another investor who can be marking up to 22 billion. So it's that, again, we are agnostic to that actually, because how does it matter? It doesn't matter to us. We have been, as I told you, for us, we believe for us, this is a 20-30 year journey. We didn't start this as a business. We just pursued our love for math, learning math and teaching math, ended up becoming big. The most satisfying thing in all this is that with every student who's coming onto the platform, we hope that we are creating students, those who are not just learning for exams, but learning for life. Like that's because it's mostly like what we are trying to do is change the control and give it back to the students. How do we bring that childlike curiosity back in students? We are trying to create more and more self-learners, or where teachers are very important, but ideally they should play the role of, as I've told you, 3 M's: mentoring, monitoring, and motivating. Where today someone who wants to learn, even we want to learn anything, everything is available. How do we personalize? How do we improve on that? How do we use technology more and more to make sure that students have an option of where they have the flexibility of learning whatever they want, whenever they want, how many ever times they want? That personalization based on pace of learning, size of learning, and style of learning. That's our ultimate aim, right? It's not something which, these are all, whether it's a unicorn or a decacorn or like they're all like fancy names, important, but it's not that's someone marking up, someone marking down has no impact on this anyway.
Right. So, we have spoken enough about valuation. So maybe we can pause for a while and slightly step back, to both of you being teachers first and then entrepreneurs. So if you see both these professions, I think we were discussing this even before the live webinar started, there's a lot of learning and an unlearning to do, to keep pace with time, markets, consumers, students, and the works. So what has been your biggest learning so far, and what do you plan to do things differently now?
So that also you turned into a business question. Okay. So I'll tell you, see, more than teachers, I'll say we are actually learners, right? And that's the most important thing. So I would say we started as teachers, but before that we were learners. And today it is important that we wear that learner's hat. We do wear our teacher's hat, but we also wear that learner's hat because we're constantly learning every single day. Entrepreneurship is not about one long race. It's about multiple sprints again and again and again and again, one after the other. So there's so many things that we've learned in our journey. It is a result of these constant learnings that we've been able to build and do and maybe create the impact that we've created so far. So it's played a big role. We've learned that we've learned how to paint on an empty canvas, because when we created something called online learning, or when we made that mainstream, today I'm fortunate to call it mainstream. It didn't even exist. Learning apps, forget about apps, learning apps were not even there when we started. So we're fortunate to be pioneers in a segment which is revolutionizing the way India is learning today. And if you look at even the dates, it's no coincidence that July 2015 was when Digital India launched, and August 2015 was when BYJU'S, the learning app, was launched. So the India digital startup story is strongly intertwined with the BYJU'S growth story. And we've grown alongside over all of these years. And today we've reached 150 million students across the world. 75% of them are in India. So all of these numbers show that without learning, without constantly innovating, without teaching, we wouldn't have reached to the small scale that we've reached. I still say small scale because we have 1.5 billion school-going students. What is the ultimate mission? The ultimate mission is, why can't you have 1.5 billion learning journeys, unique ones for each and every student? And why can't you get the students who are not going to school today to come back to school? Now, that is the larger mission. That is a larger vision. That's when we'll stop. So we have a big dream. We have a big goal. We have a big vision ahead of us. So we're ready to go.
And by no means it's been easy, right? Nothing is easy at this scale. When you have like 55,000 plus employees, those who from all backgrounds, like working across multiple functions, across 21 countries, it's every day is a challenge. Like now being, though it's very easy to use the word like being pioneers in the sector and someone who has kind of defined all of that. That also means that we'll end up making, because when you are doing something new where there is no playbook for success, that means that we will end up making maximum number of mistakes, because without making those small mistakes, but there is strong intent to correct them, right? So every time, like if we are not willing to correct, someone else will actually learn from our mistakes and make it something bigger, right? So it's very important to disrupt yourself multiple times over if you want to create something which will last for decades. So again, as I'm telling you that, I like, maybe I'll also tell you, like, just to add, just to dramatize the story a little bit more. I come from a very small village, went to a school where teachers never used to turn up. So that is when so learning first and then teaching others. The best part about teaching others is you learn better. The best way to learn anything is try teaching any concept, to try explaining something to students at 5 different proficiency levels. I used to take it as a challenge to even students who used to fail in all other subjects. I used to take it as a challenge, a personal challenge, not I was doing it just as my hobby, to make them do well in math. 80, 90, I used to make them do well in my village. So I used to teach in my village, in my school, in my college, and continued with that passion around learning math and teaching math, or the other way around, and ended up something, and that ended up becoming a business, right? So it's never about, still in that pursuit of how to make it bigger, more importantly, better, right? There is no, like, what is not allowed, it's like, it's criminal to become complacent when you know that these small actions which you do is having such a big impact on millions of students, not even thousands, right? In the offline world, maybe you can only reach out to a few thousand students. I used to teach in auditoriums and stadiums. Still, it was like largest batch used to be like 20, 25,000 students. But today we know that anything which we launch on our app, on our website, is actually reaching millions of students, because we have also done a fairly good job of creating awareness around a new segment, whether it's by using Shah Rukh Khan as a brand ambassador, whether it's by using cricket as, like, because that can take everyone, it gets everyone's attention, right? So something which we have, so apart from just building, because yeah, you can build a great product, but if you can't get enough users to actually try out and use, but once we have that kind of an audience, right? We are sitting on last 7.5 years, hundreds of millions of learning journeys. And that gives us a big advantage in terms of how we are making it better for someone who will come to the platform tomorrow. So
got it. One very important question that we seem to be getting also from the audience is about the profitability. What was that? Okay. It's about the profitability timeline of BYJU'S, because the initial timeline was FY23, which ended in March. But we have started 24, and we were hoping to get a more specific timeline on when the company is expecting to hit profitability.
Yeah. So no, we were never talking about FY23. We were talking about March 23, and we are almost there. As I mentioned, 5 out of the 6 businesses are either break-even or profitable. 5 out of the 6. We still have a challenge in one of our businesses, which we were scaling in multiple new markets, in like launching many products parallel. In an environment where we were chasing growth, we have actually scaled down that to a stage, a level where we are just keeping it for very slow organic growth, or like right now we are seeing degrowth in that. So we have to still solve for that one business where we don't have paths to profitability. But otherwise,
is that White Hat Junior we're talking about?
Yeah, that's right.
Can you tell us more about what you're trying to do with that business? Are you, some media reports suggested that the company might be planning to shut it down, or maybe there were a lot of suggestions. So since we have you here, we thought we'd ask you, what are your plans to do with that segment?
Yeah, so that's one of those products where there is a very strong product market fit. And like, think of the format. It's a format where we use teachers in India to, like, one-on-one to deliver these lessons in markets, in mainly other English-speaking markets. So strong unit economics. There is the cost quality arbitrage of depending on teachers in India. In fact, thousands of teachers, all of them women teachers. Most of them started, the graduates, we attracted them back to teaching. And where it's not necessarily teaching, as I mentioned, they play the role of mentoring, monitoring, and motivating students who are that model. Once we figure out a way to scale, it can actually create the largest teacher pool, where India can become just like people say, India can become the factory for the world, and can become the office for the world. It can also become school for the world, like, because we have so many graduates, those who are unfortunately unemployed or underemployed, right? 23-24% of the workforce is women, where we know that half the graduates are women today, like 50. There is a lot of arbitrage, cost quality arbitrage of depending on teachers in India. Very strong product market fit, but unfortunately we have not been able to figure out unlike what we have been able to do in BYJU'S, Akash, Great Learning, where we have a very strong organic top of the funnel, lot of free users, like spending a good amount of time on those free platforms. We have not been able to, where the cost of acquiring a student became too expensive because it was only dependent on performance marketing. So we've cut that down to like almost zero now. And we have to, we still need to solve for how do we get users like what we have been able to do very successfully in India with BYJU'S, Akash, and Great Learning.
But
just coming back to my
feedback,
so shutting down now, I'm not even using the
Yeah.
word of shutting down, because that might be the word investors use. That's not how in education, when there are so many students and teachers involved, those are words which I won't even entertain those words.
So
Yeah,
is there
It's
another
a very,
word?
very, very
Also, it's
harsh
so
word
good.
to use for an education business, shutting down.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the feedback is so good. If you look at right, even from the satisfaction the teachers get to the satisfaction the students and the parents get, the NPS is one of the highest for these products and the services. And the platform which it has created helps you give any kind of class, be it coding, be it math. It's a big platform to enable so many, and I would especially say women who are contributing, unfortunately, to just 18% of the GDP in India today. Look at how much they can do if we enable all of these people to a highly
But it's
respected.
important to, for us, it's important to, it was very important for us to cut down the burn in that, which we have done that all significantly over the last 6 months. There is still more, and that's more too, because we were burning money in that business because we were entering too many markets. Like we entered 5 new markets, 3 new products. Don't think of it as white hat junior. I'm talking about the concept of teachers in India teaching the world, right? There is an English-speaking world, the developed English-speaking world. There is a lot of arbitrage over there. And with our technology, with our pedagogy, and finding enough graduates, those who care about teachers, right? Like people like that actually. So because we care about education, because that's still the only way most of us can move up the social strata, right? So finding enough. So I'll put it as the other way around. There's a big opportunity for us to create India as the edtech capital for the world, education capital for the world. Let's not even use underestimate the potential by using edtech. Is any large education company, right, or anyone who's trying to make an impact in this sector, them not having their cost center in India will be it'll be very difficult for them to build things at scale. This is one segment which we can own. Like, I'm not talking about BYJU'S, we can own.
Absolutely. Coming back to the profitability timeline question again, if you could give a specific timeline to when the company will be hitting profitability, including
I already gave the answer.
White hat
5 out of the 6
did,
businesses are already at the
already.
group level.
Group level.
Yeah. Now we have, there's only one business where we are burning cash. We should be there in almost there this quarter. Our aim is to do it in this quarter. First quarter.
It's not about the timeline, right? See, we are looking at sustainable growth. For the past 6 months, we're focusing on that. For that, you cannot just limit expenses. You also have to invest in new ideas, new products, new resources in order to maximize productivity. And that's what we're doing. And entrepreneurs and companies must balance those investments against the long-term plan for eventual profit. So see, it's less about timeline. It's more about what we're doing. The timeline is as we started thinking about it strongly for the last 6 months. And we're moving towards it. Now, with the date, there's nothing much that can be done, right?
And our investors don't, the number of times you ask that question,
you are asking,
our investors ask that question, to be very honest.
So we want to be able to report accurately, and that is why we are asking you.
But you're talking about a prediction, right? But we are almost there. As I told you, the objective thing is 5 out of the 6 businesses are so. Like, if you go one
Let's
level
talk about
deeper,
what's done. Like, we don't want to talk about
5 out of the 6 businesses are either break even or profitable. One business where we don't have, like White Hat Junior or that model of one-on-one, is where we don't have that path to profitability. Not yet. Even for me, it will be very difficult to predict that. So what we have done is we have cut down the burn over there.
Got it.
Right. So I'll come in here. There's an audience question that has come in. The name is not mentioned. So the question is, what are BYJU and Divya, your views on good corporate governance standards in the company, and what steps do you adhere to, ensure these?
Yeah. So to do anything at scale, it's very important to have good corporate governance. That's whether it's in terms of it's not just about making money, right? It's also about making an impact. Now, in being in this sector, there is always a social angle, because something which, though it was not a requirement or it was not part of a CSR requirement, early on, we have also taken up this huge responsibility of, on one side, we talk about the aspiration of creating the largest education company. I'll say we have a good chance of doing that over the next 10, 20, 30 years. But one thing which I can assure you is that we will all, it'll be, and because there, I don't think anyone is doing that at scale. We will obviously create one of the largest, if not the largest, not-for-profit initiative in India through education for all. Now, beyond that, having improving on the corporate governance side, that's something that's a journey which, as and when the companies move from a small company to today a large company with 6 different businesses getting integrated into one, it's a challenge. So, but we have strengthened that function over the last few months, last 6-7 months. We have strengthened that function so that we can have world-class corporate governance, and because that's the only way you can build something which will last for 20-30 years.
And you'll build something that will make India proud and create from India, for India and for the world.
Sure. So a related question again here. So what about, these news or murmurs about layoffs within the company? Last, when we heard, there were reports about the company asking some 1,200 employees to go. And I believe last year also, about 2,500 employees were given the pink slip. So where did you go wrong in terms of recruitment?
This was, unfortunate as it was, we had to let go of 5% of our workforce. We employ today 55,000 people. And not just at BYJU'S, it has happened to tech companies world over because of multiple reasons. Now, companies can have different reasons. It can have to do with external conditions, internal requirements, change in processes and all of that. For us, I can speak and I can say that it's because we acquired so many businesses, but we never really consolidated them until 2022. So if you look at, we had 6 major acquisitions, but we didn't bring them all together. So there was an overlap of functions. And that's why, unfortunately, we had to let go of. But that being said, no one really speaks about, because all you did say that, reports suggest, but no one really speaks about the number of jobs we've added in the same amount of time. Today we
Just
are.
to add that, so you're talking about 2,500 layoffs, as unfortunate as it can be, 2,500 layoffs, and then let's say 1,200, because these are again low single-digit percentage. But it's not about but we during the same window, last 1 year, we have also added 25,000 new jobs, which unfortunately nobody talks about. Right? We are the largest. We are by far the largest employer among the startups in India. We employ the maximum number of teachers, 20,000 plus teachers in all our portfolio companies put together. So it's when you talk only about the layoffs, that's a one-sided story. Again, that's it's unfortunate. We had to do it, but it's not something which previously we were not doing that because we were just looking at growth. But when you are trying to optimize, when you are trying to look at bringing efficiencies, while integrating 6 companies, out of which 4 of them are in the same segment, naturally there will be roles which are redundant. There will be people who will be doing the same function. So we had to do it. And like almost everyone in this, while chasing growth, in some extent, we also would have overhired, and we would in some of the functions. So we had to correct that once. But in the same window, right? In last month, we have hired 2,000 new people.
Okay.
So it's when you put that in the context of 55,000 full-time employees, because it's all in that that's a number which we had to do it, but we were almost done with it. Now we'll be I'll say more judicious in while hiring people also, to make sure that we don't need to do it again and again.
Right. So, we spoke briefly about the acquisitions and stuff. So I wanted to come in with a question here. How do you think Akash has complemented the core business of BYJU'S? Could you also, on that note, could you also take us through the other acquisitions that you have made? Any other inorganic growth plans in radar? And also a related question, which has come in from the audience here. It says, were the 2021 acquisitions a mistake due to which BYJU'S is paying a hefty price now?
See, when you as I mentioned, when you are when you make 6 acquisitions, there will be successes, there will be mistakes, right? So today, the fact that question itself is generally people think that our acquisition strategy have been wrong, because people think that it's okay, White Hat Junior didn't work out. But again, not many people know or talk about how well we are doing with most other acquisitions. There are like from our inorganic growth strategy, which we did at the right time, which helped us to enter new segments, helped us to create new formats, new markets. So Akash, Great Learning, Epic, these are our, actually these three are the three biggest acquisitions in terms of value. All three we are doing very well. Some of them we are doing phenomenally well, like Akash and Great Learning. Epic we are doing well. Now these are number one, number two, number three acquisition in terms of how much value we paid. Now, White Hat Junior didn't work out. I agree, like that was a mistake, but that's when you do 5 things, like there is no way.
So the statistics are that 9 out of 10 acquisitions are supposed to fail. Okay, that is the general statistics. Here, I would say we made 9 out of 10 work. But that's what we need to speak about. So if you look at Akash has grown threefold since the time that we partnered with Akash. Right?
And revenue and it's not just revenue growth, right? It's both in revenue and profits. Akash grew 3x. Great Learning grew like almost 2.5x in a short window. So, and this also gave us an entry into 2 new segments. Akash gave us an entry into test prep segment in a big way, and Great Learning gave us an entry into the reskilling, upskilling.
Great Learning has more than 20% market share in the the fast-growing upskilling space. So both acquisitions, these two, for example, are doing phenomenally well.
Right. So there were of late reports about an academy, expressing interest in merging with Akash. So what is your comments on that? Would you be open to such opportunities?
Our comments are already out, which you must have read as per media reports. So kindly look at that comment.
Yeah, that's fine. But what do you want to tell our audience who's listening to us
so
live?
my answer to that is that there are a lot of great entrepreneurs. There are a lot of good companies. So there will be consolidation opportunities. Like I'm not talking like making any comments on anything specific here. It's always like entrepreneurs will always evaluate options where they can find synergy, right? It's never about like every country needs a BYJU'S, every segment needs a BYJU'S like platform. So there is an opportunity for entrepreneurs to come together, because like if you take a look at our in acquisitions which we have made, it was more of coming together of entrepreneurs, like-minded entrepreneurs, to build something bigger, better, and faster. So I appreciate what all of them are doing. These are just someone might be thinking, but it doesn't mean that when something concrete is happening, that will come out in the news. So
okay, got it. One question that's coming from the audience a lot, and I think it's very important to address that. So there has been a range of complaints from parents, and not just on social media websites, but also consumer websites, about them being lured by the BYJU'S sales team, and especially from weaker economic backgrounds, and then they have had to keep their savings in jeopardy, and how the parents have suffered. And I believe there have also been some cases going on regarding this. So how would you like to address that?
Okay, first I would like to ask you, why do you think we would ever want that to happen, when we just told you that our biggest mission and what makes us the happiest is the fact that 55 lakh children from the remotest, deepest parts of the country who cannot afford the product are learning for free. So there is absolutely no intent that if there is someone who could not afford the product is forced to have the product, because we have an education for all social initiative running, where anyone who cannot afford the course is given the same course for absolutely free. Now, that being said, why do you hear these stray complaints? It is possible that when you have millions of paying customers, there are isolated incidents, okay, where it could happen that someone who could not afford the course could have been offered the course to sign up. But we have a 3-level checking process centrally. So no sale is confirmed until the central audit team confirms that this sale can be given, right? Which means that if that student or parent is not able to afford the product, they're given the course for absolutely free and enrolled under Education for All. So it's, even if the complaint that you're hearing, if you're hearing it, it would be a very old complaint before we had all these processes in place. So over the last 1 year, we have ramped up each and every process. I'm not saying we've not made mistakes, We could have made isolated mistakes. It's possible when you're dealing with volumes which are in millions. It is possible, right? There will be a few complaints. But then unfortunately, in social media, I would say love is private and hate is public. And I can tell you that with so much confidence because BYJU and I are teachers first. And every day we get hundreds of messages from our students on our WhatsApp, on our phone lines, on our email, expressing their love, gratitude to us. So we know the difference we are making. We know the impact we are creating. All of these are isolated incidents which could have happened sometime in the past, but we've improved even on those small loopholes which were there. And we've built on these processes to ensure that there are zero cases of any sort of mis-selling, which is happening. We've made it so rigid that I can almost say zero chance of it happening today. We put so many processes in place and there is no intent to do that. We want to run this company for the next many decades to come. And we've been doing this for the last 15 to 20 years. We've not come from, suddenly from somewhere. So there are very strong fundamentals in terms of values, in terms of processes, and in terms of ethics also.
Got it. Thanks for that answer, Divya.
And in summaries, we would have made mistakes, but there is no reason why we won't correct it. So there's a strong intent to correct, because that's how you, when you're doing anything for the first time, and considering the fact that there are 10,000 salespeople, so even 1% of them doing a mistake at the scale, and in today's world, the detractor's voice gets amplified so much. That's why you talked about, general perception is our acquisition strategy is a failure, because if you ask people, everyone will talk about the one which didn't work. No one talks about the 4 others, which is doing phenomenally well. Everyone talks about the 2,500 people whom we laid off. No one knew that we hired 25,000 people during the same window, right? So it's the negative news travels faster. But again, we go through all the, there's a lot of noise, but we also, it's important to find out, differentiate what is feedback from that noise, and learn from those mistakes and correct them, because it's not just about, we practice what we preach. Let me repeat that. Any product which we are offering is what we use at home for our kids. They don't learn from BYJU, the teacher. They learn from BYJU'S, the platform. That's the level of conviction we have. We don't want anyone to, you will find a lot of products where entrepreneurs, the same product, they'll be banning it for their own kids. Our kids learn only this way. The conviction on everything which we do is from within. So what I'm trying to tell is, we are not here to make a lot of money and get out of it. That is not the thing. This is all, and it's all in line with what we have done. The 6 founding partners who started with us 11 years back, all of them are still there. First 300 employees who were all my students, 260 of them are still there, 11 years on. Which company can claim all these things? 260 of the 300 employees. Out of the top 20 employees, 2 people left in 10 years. Both are back. So those who are closest to the action, right? There's a huge difference between perception and reality. 75 plus investors, not a single investor have sold in the last 12 months. These are objective ways of analyzing the one with the action which is closest to the ground.
We can give you 30 positive headlines if you guys will carry it.
If there are real issues, who will leave first? The top management will leave first. We don't have a single top level exit. So these are objective ways of telling that we are in it for, because the idea is to build something which will make such a big impact and well beyond our times. And look at the ownership. It's we are not selling, we are buying. If someone is selling, we will buy more. How many entrepreneurs you can name who would have invested 650 million after 10 years of being in the business? Not just India, even outside. We don't have any other investments. We are all in. We are all in, and we are all in for the next 10, 20 years. It's been 18 years for us. It's not that we grew too fast, too soon. Yeah, we made those, when COVID gave an opportunity, we entered a lot of segments. When we entered so many segments together, we also made our mistakes. But we are not telling that we are, at the end of the day, we are normal people. In fact, what I want everyone to take home is that if we can do it, someone who's coming from a village, who went to a very normal school where teachers only never used to turn up, if I can do it, anyone can. If
Right.
you have that mindset, entrepreneurship not a skill, it's a mindset of not taking, it's a mindset where you don't take no for an answer.
Got it.
Right. Yeah. So there's an audience question, which is very related to what discussions we've been having. You talked about the mistakes. There's this gentleman, Atulya Sridhar. He's written, actually, if you go back in time and change one of your decisions, what would that be? So we spoke about a huge amount of mistakes, whatever you highlighted. What would be that key mistake that you would like to change?
It's not a mistake. We would have launched education for all sooner. I'll go and then I'll tell you. If there's one thing we would have done, I'm so excited to see that in just 2 years, maybe just little over 2 years, 55 lakh kids are learning for free, first generation learners. And I should tell you, I recently got an update that 20,000 mothers, and there was no push, nothing, are giving their 10th standard exam next year, just because their kids are learning from EFA. So we would have launched this sooner, right? We would have created a revolution and we would have educated so many more kids. That's one thing we would have done sooner. Apart from that, like Baiju, if you want to add, I don't know if
it's important to learn from mistakes, but when there is no way, again, I'm repeating, when you are doing something new, you have to make mistakes. You need to learn from mistakes to build something new. There is no other way. It's very important that you learn from those mistakes. Make sure that those mistakes they stay small and they're not becoming big, correct those mistakes. And that's how and when you find something, when you get it right, go big. But you have to make mistakes. There is no way, it'll only be wishful thinking if I just tell that, oh, I can go back and correct those mistakes. It's not possible. There's no point in that. It's important to reflect, but there's no way, I don't regret what we did, because it's going very well.
This is actually true for students also, right? Like today, we should celebrate mistakes that children make when they write an exam, when they go wrong. So mistakes should be celebrated right from childhood into adulthood, because that's when you learn. You never lose. You only learn. You only grow. You only become better.
Okay, got it. In the interest of time, since we only have a few minutes left, I'm going to ask some very important questions. One is about the status of the 1.2 billion term B loan, and what's the update there, and by when is the company expected to pay that loan?
See, it's true that the
maturity, I'll answer that.
You want to ask?
Oh, no, you go for it.
Okay. So, see, it's true that the current challenging macro has led to high interest rates. We know that, which has made debt servicing costlier for all companies everywhere in the world. BYJU'S has enough and more cash reserves to meet all the obligations. Okay, so I mean, in one line.
Just to add on, the maturity date for that loan is it's November 2026. So there's a lot of time, and we are well capitalized. Obviously, we will evaluate options because in the current environment, the interest rate, in the high interest rate environment, we are exploring options of potentially refinancing that with equity rounds. But there's a lot of time, and there is no, again, if you're just reading the media headlines, that might be misleading, but there is no issue over there. We still have, for prepayment, we still have 3.5 years, but we are evaluating options of potentially refinancing part of it through the large equity round, which you will hear the good news very soon.
Yeah, a little bit more about the good news. When is it expected?
I'm not going to disclose anything. We have always decided that we won't talk about fundraising anymore. Okay. People will know when, but we are at a stage where people will know very, very soon.
Okay, got it. Paramita, you have something to add?
Yeah, so I think one generic question for you, since we have talked a lot about your loan and all that, layoffs and things. So, what are your expansion plans for the next 3 years? Any specific plans for Southeast Asian market?
So right now we are focusing on our key markets are India, US, and Middle East in that order. India is the biggest market, US second biggest with some. We have very strong brands in US. We think there is a lot of potential for those 3 brands. We are looking for obviously organic growth. Those come Epic, Osmo, and Tinker are 3 strong platforms for reading, coding, and the other one is a computer vision platform which brings offline learning online. So within India, we are focusing on increasing the the options available to students. That's why in the last 12 months, where everyone thinks that we were struggling, we have launched 300 new senders. Generally, it takes, just to give you a comparable number, it took 30 years for Akash to reach 300 senders. We launched 300 new senders. Second, we'll focus on Akash. Both we are seeing a lot of growth in Akash, apart from the core business. So we are focusing on making sure that Akash is available to students in small towns, so that instead of them coming to a big city to prepare for 2 years, and in 2 important years of life, we are taking Akash closer to home. So that that's how we are like taking it to more and more cities. So we've increased the number of centers in Akash from 220 to 300 plus in a short span of time. In Great Learning, we are seeing growth in both India and North America. So that's another segment where we are very, very bullish about that, for continued growth, 35% growth in Great Learning as a segment. So we are well represented in all the 3 important segments: K-12 through BYJU'S, test prep through Akash, and reskilling, upskilling through Great Learning. In US, we are there with 3 good brands. I'll say 3 out of the top 10 brands in US: Epic, Osmo, and Tinker. So yeah, a lot to be done in terms of, but the markets where we are focusing on, we are not now, we'll go deep into, we'll try replicating our model in India, which is having a strong brand, large organic top of the funnel, and then creating a lot of value for students in terms of making more and more options available to them.
Right.
That's the short to midterm aim. Long-term aim is to, if we can do this for 20, 30 years more, we would have made enough of an impact where, because at the end of the day, we can easily say that if we do well, we'll end up doing good. Or if we do good, we'll end up doing well. So
sure, that's some food for thought indeed.
Staying in the game it's never about winning the game, right? It's about staying in the game.
Sure. So, one big picture question here, since there's a lot of paucity of time. So talking about the whole startup ecosystem in India, that in itself is going through a crisis. Before this, we have talked about the valuation and stuff, and why it's important is what we've seen in 21 and 22. That was completely bizarre in terms of valuation. And, that's evident from the fact that the total number of funding, or the total amount of funding, has also dropped this year from that of 2022. And, I don't know how it's going to be over the next few months. So my question to you both here is, what has caused it and how long will it last?
There's so many reasons that have caused it. And I think we are aware, like right from the war, which led to the increase in interest rates. There's so many things that are happening in the, one after the other simultaneously, which is affecting all of this. But I should say that to launch a company, to start a company, it's not about having $10 million. It's about having the 3 right people in the room with a strong idea, the passion to make something happen, and to not take no for an answer. Like he said, there are so many segments where you can innovate, where you can create. In fact, if you ask me, a recession like this is probably the best time for certain companies to start, because you will have resilience in your DNA, right? So I don't think this is an impediment for companies to start, to flourish, to blossom. Yes, funding may be low, but funding is not the only thing which drives a business forward. There are so many things which pulls a business up, which makes it work, which makes it tick. There is a cycle in every startup. There is early, there is seed, there is growth, there is maturity. It's the growth stage which needs the maximum funding. But there is a time well before that where you figure out your product market fit, you try to figure out the need in society. That's what tech solves at scale. You're able to do that. So see, that is an indicator. It can slow down things, but it doesn't necessarily need to stop anything. So if anything, this is the time where segment leaders will come out stronger than ever before. This is the time when the most innovative ideas will shine. And if India is one of those few bright spots in the world which is shining for education and for other segments as well, the world is turning towards us, and we are able to do this. We're able to create from India to the world in so many segments.
One quick question.
The positive way to look at that is that though there is less funding in the last few quarters, actually more companies have raised money. And there are a lot more entrepreneurs, or a lot more people getting into entrepreneurship in the last 12 months, 24 months. So the valuations might be challenged, for the near term, but the fundamentals are very strong, right? Most of the challenges in the world today is an opportunity for India. So it's the companies who can capitalize on that in building from India to India as well as India to the world. It's a big opportunity, because today a lot more students, they actually want to become entrepreneurs. So that there is a huge shift in mindset. Now I know that there is a short-term challenge, like because of what you call funding window, and it's a challenging environment to raise money, but that's not how the companies which are built to sustain 10, 20, 30 years, they anyway have to go through these cycles.
And anyway, how would you know a business is meant to last unless it's tested in the toughest of times?
Got it. So I quickly would request you to talk about what happened.
You will see some of the unicorns will struggle, but a lot more unicorns will soon become unicorns, like just to use the fancy words. Like might not be 6 months, might not be 12 months, but you anyway can't like think of becoming an entrepreneur and making an impact based on the VC timelines, right? It has to be well beyond 4 or 5 years. The real businesses are built over decades.
Okay. Thanks for that answer, Divya, Baiju. Just also wanted to know what happened really the last time during the company had to report their earnings, and it was an 18-month delay. We did not really get to hear much from the company, and was hoping if you could shed more light on what happened back then.
We've answered this so many times, but just to give a short answer, everyone talks about the delay, but we got a clean report. No one talks about that. We got a clean report. There are no issues in the company. Please go through the report. There are no issues in the company. Report is available in the public domain.
Okay. And okay, cool.
Media added 3 months delay because so much media attention and like fake news flying around. They had to go through multiple reviews, to be very honest. Last 3 months delay is thanks to the media. Again, I'm not complaining. It's all part of the game, right? Nothing is as good as what media writes. Nothing is as bad as what media writes. It's something in the middle.
Sorry, that bit
it's
about
not a complaint.
It's
not a complaint. You will, like, as entrepreneurs, you can go through last 10 years of any interview. Like, we are extremely positive, right? Because we come from a background where there's nothing to lose. We do this not to make money. We do this to make an impact. Right. So it's not, don't take it as a complaint. I was just telling that nothing is as good as what.
No, absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you.
No, absolutely not. And I think, we are well over time. So on that note, I'll quickly make a few announcements from our side, before we wind up. There are a huge amount of audience questions that have come in. Unfortunately, we couldn't take all of them, but a few announcements from our side. So we have another webinar coming up that's scheduled for May 11th. The topic is making the best of the new age of deal making. Now, we look forward to sharing more details with you in the coming days. So I'll request you to stay tuned for updates, please. The second is we are also launching an edtech report soon, and all of you who have attended it here will be provided a free copy with this. Now, the final announcement is on our flagship Asia PVC Summit 2023. I would request you to note the dates here. It will be held on September 5th and September 6th, 2023. It will feature more than 150 top speakers who are the leaders in the world of private capital investing. While it's going to be a 2-day event, the conference format this year is slightly different from what we've held, last few years. We will have dedicated summit tracks to provide the most comprehensive picture of the alternative asset class. So on day 1, we'll have, a general partners and investment summit alongside an LP summit. On day 2, we are going to have the VC and founders summit alongside the ESG and sustainability summit. Now, there's a QR code there, so you can please scan that and learn more about it. So thank you so much. Thank you so much, Baiju and Divya, for taking out time to join us today, and a special mention for all of you there in the audience who joined us. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good rest of the day.
Thank you. Thank you. We loved it. Thank you.
We loved having you.
Thanks, Paramita.